just to give a bit of background, really, as to why I'm here, it's just to kind of give a bit of an overview as to how we've implemented the clinical waste strategy within our trust. Before it came out and before a full-time waste manager was introduced into the trust, it was non-existent. Waste management is, to put it mildly. We were only doing the essential legal requirements, so the likes of your pre-acceptance audits. There was no local audits being carried out. There was no dangerous goods audits. Nothing like that was in place. So, we were looking, we had a big mountain to climb. We had porters were our kind of main eyes on the ground. Without those, we didn't know of any sort of non-conformances or any issues that we did have. However, the porters didn't have that knowledge behind them to be able to actually, help implement any changes or highlight that. Waste was also a bit of a bolt-on to people. So, you'd have someone in a estates compliance role, and then it'd be like, well, you can just do some waste as well. So no one really had any ownership of waste management. So we were terrible for it, to put it mildly. Orange bags were used as general waste, which I'm sure was the case in probably a lot of trusts before the clinical waste strategy came out. And an example, we had over 400 orange bagged mattresses just dumped in the waste yard. They'd all been condemned, even though arguably they weren't infectious, but they were all just in the waste yard dumped. No one had actually organised anything. There was nothing in place. So you can just see there's a few examples of what we did have. So the mattresses there on the right-hand side in the waste yard, and that's only a small proportion of it, and they're buried. And you've got lots of mixing of waste streams. A lot of these, I'm sure, within other trusts, you can kind of relate to, mixing of waste within the 770 litre waste carts. Hopefully, you can't relate to the mattresses because that's terrible. But this just give you a snapshot of actually where we were. So in order to try and overcome this, it helped, with the clinical waste strategy that we could have the budget for a full-time waste manager. So I moved into the position, and then the first thing that I kind of decided would be for the best was to make awareness, make people actually aware of the fact that waste is this thing that we have to deal with. It's a byproduct of the services that we deliver, and therefore it's something that we've got to deal with, because it's always going to be there. No matter what happens, it's always going to be there. So I kind of started by making sure people were aware of it, and the legal requirements. No one kind of knew how much of a heavily regulated industry waste is. And as it says there, very basic knowledge within the trust. There was no knowledge of understanding of the different waste streams. People didn't realise that infectious and clinical waste had to be dealt with separately. It was a case of domestic or clinical. That's that. You've got a different colour bag, but it doesn't mean anything. So a lot of that was a big thing that we had to try and deal with. And as I already mentioned, there was no ownership or responsible person to kind of monitor that and measure that compliance. So in terms of engagement, this was, again, a key point, as both Liam and I think Janet earlier touched on. Communication and engagement with staff I found was key. So I tried to use like a top-down and bottom-up kind of strategy. So we have a weekly allied health professional meetings. So it's all the clinical leads, matrons, heads of departments, director of nursing, things like that. So it's obviously clinically focused. However, I kind of arranged to get a slot on the agenda with that, and basically said, about offensive waste, about the 2020-60 that we need to bring in, and, kind of almost forced a hand to kind of listen, and gave a bit of a presentation, explained about the differences, explained the cost differences, the CO2e differences, and all these sort of things. It was just, I felt like a lot of people just had a bit of a light bulb moment, and they didn't realise until they heard that. And then similarly, I went from a bottom-up type strategy. So I looked at housekeepers, domestics, portering staff, so the actual people on the ground level that are actually doing the thing. So I went, again, to housekeepers meetings, domestics meetings, portering meetings, and just, again, gave a very similar presentation, to be fair, because they're the ones who are going to be driving it at the ward level. They're the ones who are going to be making that segregation. You know, they have their daily huddles within their wards. They're going to be making sure that people are doing what they should be doing. And I think that was really key, getting them on board. And also, they might be seeing things that I don't see. You know, they've got way more of an awareness of what goes on than me, sat behind my desk coming to the ward every so often. So, you know, there was a lot of things that they kind of highlighted that I hadn't even considered, you know. So it was really good to have that engagement, you know, and have that level of staff buy-in, which was really good. IPC was a big issue, because again, IPC, it's a very, very separate entity, or it's treated as a very separate entity. We didn't work together collaboratively very well. So it was getting them on board as well and ensuring IPC understood it, because if IPC didn't understand offensive waste and what could be classed as offensive waste, how would they be able to, you know, make sure people and the clinical staff and clinical side of things, how would they be able to almost police that and make sure they're doing the right thing? Trust comms, so both formal and informal. So we have like a fortnightly magazine that comes out, so it's getting pieces in there. Having waste champions was advertised in there, so you have people at within the department who are responsible for waste, and again take that bit of ownership. Because, you know, I'm only one person covering, you know, one trust that's got 2 hospital sites. I can't have eyes everywhere, so having people, you know, on on each department and each ward really helped. And, you know, we haven't got waste champions on every single ward, but we've got quite a few, and, you know, that really helps. I can get that comms out to those people, and then they can, you know, disseminate that as well. So also, all stakeholders were involved at all levels. You know, I think particularly in my trust, it's notorious for quite poor communication. So I didn't want to be part of that problem. You know, I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of what was going on and why from the outset, and keeping them all involved, which again really helped with buy-in as well, I think. So that was really good. So consistency, again, this was huge, because consistency was key, because as I mentioned, we've got 2 main acute sites, acute hospitals, both very different demands, different demographics of patients. So we wanted to make sure that it was consistent across the board. Staff work cross sites, staff work cross departments, so it was key to make sure that the message was exactly the same, the signage was the same, everything was the same across the board, which because you don't want to be one site telling you one thing and another site telling you another thing. So that was something that was really key. Regular auditing was really good, and then any adjustments where necessary. So a key example of that is, to start with, it was if you're in an infectious patient, then obviously it's orange bag. But then it was trying to explain to staff, well, what constitutes an infectious patient? Is it C. diff or is it MRSA? Is it ESBL? But then ESBL has different, you know, if you've had an incubation period of X amount, so it excludes my clinical naivety. But it was very confusing for all staff. So people were having orange bags when they didn't need it, and tiger bags when it should have been orange bags. So it was really confusing. So in consultation with the cleanliness manager who oversees both sites, we just kind of made a blanket rule. If you're in a side room and you have like a red or yellow room, so if you're in isolation or suspected isolation, that's it. Simple as that, you're an orange bag. So staff know, because they've got a red or yellow placard on the door for the side rooms or the bay or whatever. Staff know if you have the red or yellow sign, that's a trigger point to then go, right, it needs to be an orange bag. And that just made it really clear. So granted, there's probably going to be a little element of overclassification, potentially. However, we're capturing the majority of people that are, or all people, sorry, that are actually infectious, and we're capturing that correct waste stream. So it's kind of the lesser of the 2 evils, and making sure that we captured the right waste, and we're treating that correctly. Compliance, again, this is obviously huge. So we employed a waste consultancy, technical advisors. So they came in and ripped apart our waste policy, our waste management manual, everything, and they rewrote the entire thing. So it was in line with HCM 0701. As Liam mentioned earlier, it's all linked to it. So if that's updated, it's signposted correctly to the new HCM, as opposed to a backdated. I think it was about 6 years out of date. So it's all completely in line with HCM 0701. I also set up a waste management group. which is a quarterly compliance group, as with any other HTM discipline, so your med gas, your ventilation, things like that. We have a waste management group now, which is a tier 3 formal meeting. It's minuted, happens quarterly, and it's multidisciplinary. So we've got lots of stakeholders, from clinical leads, heads of departments, to there's housekeepers on there. There's all sorts of multiple agencies on there that we can discuss risk. We discuss any regulatory changes. There's also anything that's pertinent, that any non-conformances, anything like that is all discussed. And it's not just clinical waste, it's all manner of waste. So when it comes to simpler recycling coming in 18 months, that's also going to go through the waste management group process as well. So I've also organised fortnightly meetings with the facilities and portrait managers, which again is something that didn't happen before. So I sit under estates, whereas it's the portering and facilities team who operationally run the waste day to day. So there's straight away the disconnect there. So it was important to highlight these differences and any issues that we have. So a fortnightly meeting with the portrait managers at each site, as well as the senior logistics manager who oversees it. It's a straight away, it's a good level of communication between them and me, and vice versa, to highlight any issues and address anything. So that's far more informal, but it's just a bit of a kind of a check-in almost. Portering training and awareness. So again, we've done quite a lot of work with the porters themselves to understand why waste is treated the way it is, what we do, where it goes in the different waste streams, how it's treated. And also something that I picked up on earlier with one of the other speakers was that a level 2 MVQ in waste management can be obtained. So that's something I'm going to take back and then see if I can put the porters through that as well. So again, get a bit of buy-in, a bit of ownership, which should then hopefully help. So we've got site and department audit. So again, that's something I go around every so often, pretty informal, but I'll go around, just have a discussion to people, look what's in the bins, see what they're doing, and see if there's any little tweaks that we can make and make a good benefit and saving. IPC audit schedule, that's something that's happened very recently actually. IPC do regular quality ward walks, so I've now managed to get on those ward walks as well. So I then go around with IPC. Obviously they're looking at their aspects, but I'm also going around and looking at the waste management side of things as well. Putting ownership on the ward managers to make sure that they're taking ownership for their area. And again, it's that line of communication which I found has been really helpful. Also, we've done a mandatory training package. I say mandatory, we wanted it mandatory, but our trust has put a stop on mandatory training at the moment because there's just so many of it, so much of it. But we've got a training package that's been developed by a company which highlights all the different waste streams, waste segregation, and it takes about 20 minutes, I think, but it's something that I want to be bringing in and making it mandatory, so people do need to have that awareness, and it's education, I think, is a really important. So segregation, again, we've got segregated at the point of production, as you all know. This was really important because it was all over the place. So what I tried to do was improve the disposal holds, improve where the waste is, make it crystal clear, what goes in what bin. So you can see on that picture, we've got literally rudimentary as taping a bag to the wall with a poster and an arrow to say, right, this waste stream goes in this bin, do not mix it. And it was little things like that bin, for instance, on the far left for the infectious waste, that's behind the door. So as soon as someone opens a door and just throws in a bag, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be tiger waste, offensive waste. So it gives them that sort of couple of seconds to just stop and think, and they have to go out of the way to put the infectious waste right behind the door. So it's a lot of behavioural change and just kind of forcing people's hand almost, and that was a really a key thing. Clear and consistent signage I've touched on already, and then bin labels. So we had these bin labels produced by one of our contractors, and we've basically labelled every single bin. As we've done a rollout, we've gone around and labelled all the bins, which is very labour intensive, as I'm sure you can imagine. However, it's again stopping for that 5 seconds and just go, okay, is this the right thing to go into this waste stream? So we've got one for offensive waste, one for infectious, and one for domestic. And it's got a little snapshot there of a few things that can go in, which should hopefully really help for staff. I'll just show you this one. So again, this is another really bad example that we had. So this is the same disposal hold. In here we've got HTI waste, tiger waste, and that was infectious waste, that third one. And because of the amount of offensive waste that was being generated, this is what we were coming into every time. It was horrendous. So it was just a case of, I just moved the infectious waste one to a different disposal hold that's still within walking distance, and then we had two 770s for tiger waste. So you then just, move in one of the waste streams, and all it's just training and education that if you've got orange and infected waste, you need to just go to the other disposal hold, whereas offensive waste can go into this hold. You've got 2 bins for it. So we made a massive improvement, and I mean, some of these signs here, like I was getting a bit frustrated, as you can probably tell, because it's, I was still getting mixing of waste. So I got to a point where I printed A3 pieces of paper with tiger bags only and HTI bags only as well in there. But it worked, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, so same disposal holds about 4 or 5 weeks apart. It was a huge difference. Obstacles. So we came with a lot of obstacles, as I'm sure you can imagine. The majority of the time, speaking to staff and having that awareness really made a difference. It was a huge thing to just speak to people and understand, and money talks. So I was telling people the cost of the disposal to cost, because people were gobsmacked of how much the difference is between domestic, offensive, infectious, and HTI as well. So it made a huge difference to what people were doing. Going to huddles on the wards, any staff like departmental training days. If they wanted to, I'd go down and talk to them, give them a bit of a presentation, have a chat, answer any questions, and it really helped. Logistical difficulties was a real battle. As I'm sure probably a lot of you have got, is limited space. We've just got no space, so a key to that was 360-litre bins from Stericycle. We didn't have those, so it took a long battle to try and get them, because they weren't being collected, or if they were, it wasn't we weren't getting them returned. So it was an absolute nightmare to try and get sorted. But also, obviously, they're a lot smaller, so it helped with the storage difficulties. Very recently, we've just kind of won them over and come up with a plan to do that. So we can now roll it out to even more areas because we have that storage space. We have those smaller bins, which make a huge difference. So also, it kind of makes it a bit easier. So a blanket message to people will be in the affected areas. It'll be orange bag, little bin, tiger bag, big bin. Simple as that. It's simple and effective. In the case of an outbreak or something, then obviously, we'd revert the larger bins to orange bags and stuff. But day to day, generally, it's going to be tiger bag in a big bin, orange bag in a little bin. Staff buy-in, that we've always done it that way. Trying to behavioural change people's mindset. That was a real hurdle. And, the amount of times people are like, oh, who's done this? Why are we having to do this? And you're like, well, NHS England have said it, so we've got to do it. It's simple as that. But people were really anti it, and it took a lot of visiting and kind of doing people's head in about it, really. Something that Liam touched on earlier was the whole guilty till proven innocent in terms of how clinical staff treat infections, whereas the waste side of things is innocent till proven guilty. So we don't know that it's infectious until it's proven that it's infectious, and therefore we need to treat it as a non-infectious waste until it's proven, whereas the clinical side is the complete opposite. And that was really hard to kind of overcome. And it took a lot of work and training with our consultancy and our advisors. Some areas we just could not get their head around it, so we actually brought them in and had meetings with them and explained it from their perspective, explained the whole process, and again, that really helped to kind of understand. IPC, which I mentioned again, similar sort of thing to the above, is guilty till proven innocent versus innocent till proven guilty. IPC, we had a separate training session with all the IPC staff so that they could understand it, which really helped. The lack of finance, again, as I'm sure you all understand and are aware of. No funding to just increase the storage or the footprint of the site. Capital funding was completely, taken up. So we've just had to kind of do what we can do. We're trying to get some capital funding for next year and the year after, due to the simpler recycling coming in. However, it's proving difficult. So, yeah, that's an ongoing struggle, as I'm sure you're all aware. So again, just a bit of a snapshot there. I'll leave it up for you to have a bit of a read of. But the financial benefits that we saw as a trust, we only started it in December 23. We've already seen £18,500 reduction just by introducing the offensive waste stream across the trust, or the majority of the trust. So as a snapshot, we had 75 tonnes of infectious waste in December 23, which cost us that much. But then, as a comparison, we had 1.6 tonnes of offensive waste, which is frankly shocking. So we've managed to swap those two numbers around. So you can see there, 2,900% increase in the weight that's produced of correctly classified waste, which is a huge difference. And it's unfortunate that's not going to be a year-on-year increase. It's only going to be kind of an instantaneous, over a year once we've rolled it out. But it's still a huge saving, which we can then invest into other areas of our overall waste management strategy. So again, a bit of a snapshot there of where we were before. So before there was any rollout whatsoever, October 23, 2 trust sites at the top, and as a trust overall, so we're at 1% offensive, 86% infectious, and 13% HTI. So we're obviously way off the 2020-60 target, which almost seemed insurmountable. And it was quite daunting, really, as I'm sure you can understand. However, the latest figures that we got last month, we've now managed to completely flip it to that. The only reason we're a bit lower at one of our sites is because we've got a 5-storey ward block to move over. And because we've now got 360-litre bins, we can do that. And that's actually happening week after next. So we'll see a large reduction in that one as well. But as a trust, we're only at 7% HTI, which is obviously below what's expected. And then we're just off the 60%, but we've made a huge progress, a huge difference. And on the right, the top right, the PRH site, that's where we kind of did the majority rollout. It's probably about 95% of that hospital has got offensive waste, which is why we've got those figures that we've got there. So it's nice to see that. And again, I've presented that to all those groups that I've discussed, from board down to housekeepers. And it adds a bit of weight and understanding and makes people aware of why we're doing it, and seeing the tangible results really helps, I think. So it's just been really good. So next steps then. So as I mentioned, the 5-storey ward block, which is 10 wards, is due to be rolled out on the 23rd, so in a couple of weeks. Further work with staff to ensure that the correct waste is actually being disposed of. So that's the next major piece of work. We're still getting packaging, we're still getting hand towels, we're still getting all sorts of stuff that shouldn't be in there into the offensive waste stream. But I wanted to make sure that we were doing the offensive waste was out, and people understood it before I start kind of tapping in and saying, right, does this need to go there? Does that need to go there? So it's just a bit further work to do with that. X-ray and fracture clinics is a big area, but we've got to kind of do that bit targeted approach because of the nature of what they're doing. So as you're aware, fracture clinics, they use gypsum bags, which is the same as tiger bag, the offensive waste bags. So we've just got to make sure that we're not doing the wrong thing. So it's just a bit more measured and targeted. Continuous monitoring and auditing to just make sure that we're still doing what we should be doing. And then we're looking at relocating the waste shells at both sites, which is obviously a huge piece of work, but it's longer term, which will then give us a bit more capacity to be able to do what we need to do with recycling coming in and everything else. And that is me. Thank you very much.